interesting, and definitely, in other industries, we might think of certain certifications, and it sounds like there might be some, but very limited. So how did this translate to your vision for Asymmetric by Design? Because you mentioned briefly that you've had this 45 years of collecting beads, and how this has led to where you are today. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So I really thought about, I wanted a brand that was sustainable, but really also aiming to become a net positive and B Corp. So I wanted to have both the sustainability component and the social component. Since there was a lack of transparency in terms of the production or the mining of most of these raw materials, and I've been an avid collector of antiques. I love vintage like you and antiques. I was like, well, it's much easier for me to focus on things that exist. Okay, then I guarantee that there's been no issues in terms of labor. I can guarantee that there's been no issues in terms of mining or deforestation. This is something that's been done 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago. It exists right now. And it might be not going to a landfill. So I decided to use predominantly vintage and antique material. I'm also using recycled material from a vendor I have here in Montreal that supports local artists in Africa, in Mali, in Ghana. Where I don't have a full clarity in terms of that, and I hope to develop, because obviously everything we do is incrementally better, is getting a full transparency in terms of their carbon footprint in terms of my recycled materials. I assume it's still better than, producing plastic now, but I'm not sure. And I'm also investigating all kinds of material that would have a low carbon footprint, such as the lava stone. It's spewing out in Iceland, so there's no mining issues.
Interesting.
I've gone to the pearl farms again. I think it's very sustainable. So I'm really looking at, if I'm sourcing materials, I want to source them for the right place, and then I want to make sure that they have a very minimal carbon footprint. So this is how I've decided to orient my designs and my collection and my material. So I'm very determined in terms of what raw materials I use.
Love what you were just saying of incremental improvements. I think sometimes we have paralysis by analysis, and we want to do this amazing project, and we get a little bit nervous about having everything perfect from the get-go. So I love this incremental learning, and I think that that's what we all need to do to find these more sustainable solutions. So congratulations on taking that approach. If there are people, our listeners, in the jewelry space, and maybe they're interested in getting a little bit more sustainable, maybe taking one of those incremental steps, what would you recommend they do as maybe some of those first steps to become either more socially or environmentally conscious in their practices?
Well, again, if they can ask their suppliers about certification, do they have certification, where they're coming? So ask questions. First of all, think of using recycled materials. Think of, circular fashion. So, offering redesign services. We often think of that in terms of melting gold, melting silver, resetting diamonds. But it can be really anything. So offering that service or repairs as well. And then there's innovative products and designs. My daughter just got engaged, and this new generation is going with lab-grown diamonds, and so there's all these different products that are very interesting, and I'm exploring different things. I'm exploring laser cutting of items that would have been basically thrown out. So how can I, take things that would be destined to landfill and actually transform them into something really amazing and beautiful? There's all these new technologies. I haven't explored 3D printing. There's all these things that we can explore, but definitely there's, I've come to understand that, innovation is a muscle that needs to, and creativity is a muscle that we can work on, and we can just think. And so I think there's I'm very optimistic. about the future, and including jewelry.
And you mentioned exploring new technology, maybe like laser cutting. Are you working on any specific projects right now that you're particularly excited about and that you can share with listeners?
Okay. So I'm exploring different suppliers, yes.
Okay.
But what I'm most excited about, and I'm currently in the process of updating it, is I'm a mathematician by education. That's my first love is math. So I have a degree in pure math and economics from Queen's. And I just love solving problems, love making models, love forecasting, which is a little bit surprising since I'm also artistic.
I was going to say those are kind of polar opposites in my mind, but that's beautiful that those come together.
Yes. So this summer, when I was really, trying to say, okay, how can I also educate and change the customer's mindset and realize that we all have influence, like we all have also a power to make changes, for the better of the planet. And so I have been researching how can I quantify the actually environmental impact that each one of my designs is making, and on an individual basis. So I love vintage clothing, as do you. And so one of the biggest resellers is the Real Real. So these are all certified clothing, certified jewelry, certified everything. They're secondhand, they're being resold. So I said, okay, this is the closest market and the biggest, and they actually have a really robust sustainability calculator for every single one of their items. So I made an economic model. So I've backward engineered their sustainability calculator. I talked with them. I talked with also their consultants, discussed. They couldn't believe I had backward engineered it, but I had figured it out. And so I was able to identify if something was made of man-made, so resin, for example, versus something that was mined, the carbon footprint in terms of water saved as well as carbon saved by using something that is secondhand. And so now I'm updating the website with that data for each individual product. And so that I'm very, very excited about. So then people will know when they buy this necklace, it's not a huge savings and impact, but still it'll start getting the wheels thinking, oh, maybe, wow, everything I do actually has an impact. And everything adds up and is cumulative. And if we all start thinking that way, we can really bend that curve. And so this is what I'm actually most excited about.